I pulled into the long-term parking lot at Toronto Pearson International Airport, excited to surprise my son for his birthday. It was supposed to be a good day. I had flown in from Calgary specifically for this occasion. But as I walked through the rows of parked vehicles, something caught my eye. A silver Toyota Corolla with condensation on the windows. And inside, I saw a movement. I walked closer. My heart stopped. It was my son. My son Daniel was sleeping in the back seat with his twin boys, Ethan and Lucas, curled up beside him under a single blanket in an airport parking lot. In March, I knocked on the window. Daniel's eyes shot open. For a moment, he just stared at me through the glass, and I saw something I'd never seen in my son's face before. Shame. If you've ever watched someone you love hit rock bottom, you know exactly what I felt in that moment. Stay with me because what happened next changed everything for our family. He opened the door slowly. The boys were still asleep. "Dad," he said, his voice hoarse. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I couldn't keep my voice steady. "Daniel, what the hell is going on? Where's the house? Where's Amanda? Why are you living in your car with my grandsons?" He looked away. "It's complicated." "Complicated? You're sleeping in a parking lot with 5-year-old children in March." The boys started to wake up. Ethan rubbed his eyes and saw me. "Grandpa," his little voice broke something in my chest. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing a smile. "Why don't you and Lucas come with Grandpa to get some breakfast? Your dad and I need to talk." An hour later, the boys were eating pancakes at the airport Tim Hortons while Daniel and I sat at a separate table. He looked thin, tired, defeated. The son I had raised. The man who had graduated top of his engineering class, who had built a successful startup from nothing, now looked like a shadow of himself. "Tell me everything," I said. He took a shaky breath. "Amanda left me 3 months ago. But it's not just that she left. She took everything, Dad. Everything. The house, the bank accounts, the business money. All of it." "What do you mean all of it?" "The house was in both your names. She had me sign papers. Said it was for tax purposes to put the house in her name only. I trusted her. I signed." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Then one day, I came home from work and the locks were changed. There was a restraining order. Her lawyer claimed I was mentally unstable. Dangerous. Said I'd been threatening her." "That's insane. You've never been violent a day in your life." "I know, but she had evidence, Dad. Or at least her lawyer said she did. Text messages I supposedly sent. Emails. Witnesses who claimed they'd seen me acting erratic. Her parents backed up every word. They painted this picture of me as this unstable, controlling husband, and the judge believed them." I felt my hands clenching under the table. "What about the money? The $150,000 I invested in your startup?" Daniel's face crumbled. "Gone." She was the one managing the business accounts. The day before she left, she transferred everything to an investment account belonging to her father. Claimed it was a legitimate business loan we discussed. I have no proof otherwise because she handled all the paperwork. "And the boys? Custody hearing was 2 weeks ago. I lost." His voice cracked. "I only get supervised visitation twice a week. The rest of the time, they're with her and her parents. The court said I needed to prove stable housing and employment first. But I can't get stable housing without money. And Amanda made sure I have nothing." "How have you been surviving?" "I've been working odd jobs, barely making enough for food and this parking spot. I shower at the gym. The boys think we're on an adventure." He laughed bitterly. "Some adventure." I felt rage building in my chest. Rage like I hadn't felt since my wife died 8 years ago. "Where are you supposed to have these supervised visits?" "Her parents' house, with her mother supervising." Daniel's hands trembled. "It's humiliating, Dad. They watch every interaction. Write notes. I can't even hug my own sons without feeling like I'm being judged." "This ends now," I said firmly. "Pack up your car. You and the boys are coming to stay at my hotel until we figure this out. Then we're going to fix this." "Dad, you don't understand. Her family has money. Her father, Richard Caldwell, is a real estate developer. They have lawyers. Good lawyers. I can't fight them. Maybe you can't, but we can." That night, after the boys were asleep in the hotel room, I sat at the desk and started making calls. First to my lawyer in Calgary, David Brooks, who I'd known for 30 years. Then to an old friend, Detective Rachel Turner with Toronto Police, who owed me a favor from years back when I'd helped her daughter get into university. "David, I need you to recommend the best family lawyer in Ontario. Money is not an issue." "What's going on, Robert?" I told him everything. When I finished, There was a long pause. "This smells like fraud," David said. "The business account transfers, the forged documents, the coordinated testimony. If what Daniel says is true, this isn't just a custody dispute. This is organized theft. You need someone who handles both family law and financial crimes." He gave me a name: Victoria Stern, one of the top lawyers in Toronto, specializing in high-conflict custody cases with financial abuse components. Her retainer was expensive. I didn't care. The next morning, I met with Victoria. She was in her late 40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. Her office walls were lined with law degrees and certificates. "Tell me everything," she said, pen poised over a legal pad. "And I mean everything. Don't leave out details you think are insignificant." I recounted Daniel's story. She took notes, asked pointed questions, then leaned back in her chair. "Here's what we're dealing with," Victoria said. "Your son's ex-wife and her family have executed what we call financial coercive control combined with parental alienation. They've systematically stripped him of resources, credibility, and access to his children. The text messages, the witnesses, the mental health accusations. This is a playbook. I've seen it before. Can we prove it? That depends. Do you have any documentation from the business? Bank statements, emails, anything?" "I have the wire transfer confirmations from when I invested the money. Emails from Daniel about the business plan. But Amanda handled most of the business accounts." "That's a start. What about Daniel's mental health? They're claiming he's unstable. Does he have any medical records proving otherwise?" "He was seeing a therapist last year. Not because he was unstable, but because work was stressful. He was trying to manage the pressure of the startup." Victoria nodded slowly. "That's actually good. Therapy records showing he was proactively managing stress prove the opposite of their claims. We need those records." She stood and walked to her window, looking out at the Toronto skyline. "We also need to do a forensic accounting analysis of the business accounts. If money was transferred out improperly, we'll find it. And we need to depose the witnesses who claimed Daniel was unstable. I guarantee their stories won't hold up under scrutiny." "How long will this take?" "Months, maybe longer. Family court moves slowly. But in the meantime, we can file an emergency motion to modify the custody arrangement. If we can show that the boys are in a stable environment with you and Daniel, and that Amanda obtained custody through fraudulent means, we might be able to get temporary joint custody while the case proceeds." "Do it." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a man on a mission. I rented a 3-bedroom apartment in Mississauga, furnished it completely with everything 2 young boys could need. Bunk beds with superhero sheets, a toy chest, books, everything. I enrolled Ethan and Lucas in a school nearby, met with their teachers, explained the situation as delicately as I could. Daniel got a job with a tech company through a former colleague who believed in him. The salary wasn't what he used to make, but it was stable, respectable, enough to show the court he could provide. But I knew that wasn't enough. I made it my mission to build the case from the ground up. I drove to Daniel's old workplace and talked to his colleagues. Every single one of them was shocked by the accusations. "Daniel unstable? That's absurd," said Mark Stevens, his former business partner. He was a big man with kind eyes, and he spoke with genuine frustration. He was the calmest person in the room during any crisis. Amanda was the volatile one. I remember her screaming at him in the office once because he worked late. Everyone heard it. "Would you be willing to testify to that?" I asked. "Absolutely. I'll do whatever it takes. Daniel doesn't deserve what's happening to him." I found 3 more colleagues who said the same thing. They remembered Amanda's outbursts, her controlling behavior, her constant calls to check on Daniel's whereabouts. They remembered how Daniel always stayed calm, always tried to de-escalate. Then I tracked down the therapist, Dr. Karen Mitchell. She couldn't share Daniel's records without his consent, but Daniel signed a release immediately. No hesitation. When Dr. Mitchell provided her notes, they painted a clear picture. A man dealing with normal work stress using healthy coping mechanisms. 0 signs of instability or aggression. In fact, her notes mentioned that Daniel often spoke about wanting to be a good husband and father, about his concerns that he wasn't doing enough for his family. The opposite of what Amanda had claimed. Then I started digging into Amanda's family. Her father, Richard Caldwell, was a real estate developer in Oakville. Big house, expensive cars, country club membership. On the surface, everything looked legitimate, but I had a feeling there was more beneath that polished exterior. My detective friend Rachel did some checking. What she found confirmed my suspicions. Robert Richard Caldwell has been investigated twice by the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Center of Canada, both times for suspicious large cash deposits. No charges filed, but definite red flags. She paused. And get this, 3 years ago, a business partner sued him for fraud. The case was settled out of court with sealed records. Can we use that? Depends on what your lawyer can dig up, but it establishes a pattern of behavior. This family knows how to play dirty and cover their tracks. Victoria hired a forensic accountant named Stephen Shawn. He was a quiet man with thick glasses and an obsessive attention to detail. It took him 3 weeks, but he traced every dollar of Daniel's business accounts. What he found was damning. The $150,000 I'd invested had been transferred to an account belonging to Richard Caldwell, labeled as a business loan. But there was no loan agreement, no terms, no repayment schedule, nothing in writing. Just a transfer made the day before Amanda filed for the restraining order. More transfers followed. Over 14 months, Amanda had systematically moved money from the business account to personal accounts, then to her father's accounts. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there, then larger sums, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. By the end, she transferred nearly $280,000. This isn't a marital dispute, Stephen said, showing me his report. His finger traced the flow of money on a complex diagram. This is embezzlement. She was draining the business while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. And her father was complicit. These aren't random transfers. They're structured to avoid detection. Whoever planned this knew exactly what they were doing. Can Daniel get the money back? If we can prove fraud, yes. But it'll require criminal charges, not just civil court. This is beyond family law. This is financial crime. Victoria filed motions. First, an emergency motion to modify custody. She presented evidence that Daniel now had stable housing and employment, that the boys had been living with him and me for a month, that they were thriving in school, their teachers noting improved behavior and happiness, that they were seeing their pediatrician regularly. She presented Dr. Mitchell's records, demolishing the mental instability claims. Every session note contradicted Amanda's accusations. Daniel wasn't unstable. He was a caring father struggling under the weight of a manipulative spouse. She presented testimony from Daniel's colleagues. 5 people willing to swear under oath that Daniel was calm, professional, and that Amanda was the one with anger issues. Amanda's lawyer, a slick guy named Gregory Price, fought back hard. He was expensive, polished, and clearly experienced in these types of cases. Your Honor, Gregory argued during the emergency hearing, Mr. Reeves is only stable now because his father is bankrolling everything. This isn't sustainable. It's a temporary facade designed to manipulate this court. The boys need their mother. They need consistency. And my client has been providing that consistency while Mr. Reeves has been living in parking lots. But Victoria was relentless. Your Honor, the reason Mr. Reeves was living in a parking lot is because Mrs. Caldwell systematically stripped him of every resource. She transferred his money. She took his home. She manufactured a restraining order based on fabricated evidence. And now her lawyer has the audacity to use the poverty she created as evidence of his unfitness. The judge looked thoughtful. Victoria continued, "We're not asking for full custody at this time. We're asking for equal parenting time while the investigation proceeds. We're asking for these boys to have access to their father, a father who loves them, a father who was driven to desperation by financial abuse, not mental illness." The emergency motion was partially granted. The supervised visitation requirement remained, but Daniel was allowed more time with the boys. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. The supervised visits became our strongest evidence. I attended several with Daniel. They took place at the Caldwell family home, a massive house in Oakville with manicured lawns and expensive furniture. Amanda's mother, Margaret Caldwell, sat in the corner with a notebook, writing constantly. Every time Daniel hugged his sons, she scribbled. Every time he spoke, she wrote. But what she didn't know was that Daniel had started recording the audio of every visit on his phone, legally, since it was in a shared space with consent notices posted on the wall. What the recordings showed was damning. The boys were happy, well-adjusted, excited to see their father. They called him Daddy unprompted. They hugged him tightly. They told him about school, about their friends, about the drawings they'd made for him. There was zero fear, zero hesitation. They were normal kids with their normal father. But Margaret's notes told a completely different story. When Victoria subpoenaed those notes, they painted a picture of a monster. Father appeared agitated. Children seemed withdrawn and anxious. Father's tone was aggressive when discussing school. Children did not initiate physical contact. All lies. All documented lies. All contradicted by the audio recordings. Victoria submitted the recordings to the court with a motion to end supervised visitation, arguing that the supervision was being weaponized to create false evidence. The real battle was just beginning. The forensic accounting report changed everything. Victoria didn't just submit it to family court. She submitted it to the Toronto Police Fraud Division and to the Canada Revenue Agency. Within 2 weeks, Richard Caldwell was under investigation for tax evasion and fraud. Amanda was facing potential criminal charges for embezzlement. The Caldwell family's carefully constructed world was beginning to crack. I watched it happen from the sidelines, gathering more evidence, supporting Daniel, making sure my grandsons felt safe and loved. Every night, I tucked Ethan and Lucas into their bunk beds. Every night, they asked when they could live with Daddy all the time. Soon, I promised them. Very soon. Victoria called me into her office 3 weeks before the custody hearing. "Robert, we need to talk strategy," she said, spreading documents across her conference table. "The forensic report is solid. Stephen traced every fraudulent transfer. But we need more. We need to prove that Amanda deliberately fabricated the mental health accusations. How do we do that? We depose her witnesses. The people who claim they saw Daniel acting erratically. If their stories don't hold up under oath, the entire foundation of her case collapses." The depositions were scheduled for the following week. First up was Amanda's friend, Stephanie Morris, a woman in her mid-30s with perfectly styled hair and nervous eyes. She had provided a written statement claiming she witnessed Daniel acting aggressively at a dinner party. Victoria began the questioning. "Mrs. Morris, in your statement, you claim you witnessed Mr. Reeves acting aggressively at a dinner party in September of last year. Can you describe exactly what you saw?" Stephanie shifted in her seat. He was upset, raising his voice. Raising his voice about what? "I don't remember exactly." "You don't remember. But you were certain enough to provide a written statement to Mrs. Caldwell's lawyer. A statement that was used to obtain a restraining order and restrict a father's access to his children." Amanda told me what happened. She was very upset. Victoria leaned forward. "So you didn't actually witness Mr. Reeves acting aggressively. You heard about it from Mrs. Caldwell." Long pause. I saw him looking angry." "Looking angry. Was he yelling?" "No." "Was he threatening anyone?" "No." "Was he physical with anyone?" "No." "So your testimony is that you saw a man looking angry at a party. Is that correct?" Stephanie's face reddened. Amanda said he'd been threatening her. I believed her. "But you didn't witness any threats personally." "No." Victoria made a note. No further questions. The second deposition was even more revealing. Thomas Blackwood was Amanda's neighbor. He had claimed in his statement that he heard Daniel shouting threats through an open window. "Mr. Blackwood, you stated that you heard Mr. Reeves shouting threats. Can you tell me the exact words you heard?" Thomas was a heavy-set man in his 60s. He looked uncomfortable. "I don't remember the exact words." "You don't remember. But you were certain he was making threats." He sounded angry. "What did you actually hear?" Long pause. "I heard raised voices." Raised voices. Plural. So there was more than one person speaking loudly. "I suppose." "Could you distinguish the words?" "Not really. The window was closed most of the way." Victoria pulled out a document. "Mr. Blackwood, your statement says you heard threats through an open window. Now you're saying the window was mostly closed and you couldn't distinguish words. Which is it?" Thomas shifted. "I may have. Amanda told me what they were arguing about." "So Amanda told you what the argument was about, and you assumed the rest." "She was very convincing. She was crying." "Did you ever see Mr. Reeves act violently?" "No." "Did you ever hear him make specific threats?" "No." "Did you ever witness any behavior that would indicate he was a danger to his children?" "No." "The boys always seemed happy when they were with him." Victoria smiled. No further questions. One by one, the witnesses crumbled. Every person who had provided statements against Daniel admitted under oath that they hadn't actually witnessed what they claimed. They had heard stories from Amanda. They had believed her because she was convincing, because she cried, because her family was wealthy and respected, but none of them had seen anything firsthand. Meanwhile, the criminal investigation into Richard Caldwell was accelerating. Detective Rachel Turner kept me updated. "Robert, this is bigger than we thought," she said during a phone call. "Richard Caldwell has been laundering money through his real estate developments for years. Your son's business money was just a small part of it. The CRA is building a massive case." "Will this affect the custody hearing?" "It should. If the judge sees that Amanda's family has a pattern of financial crimes, it destroys their credibility." The week before the custody hearing, Victoria filed a motion to admit evidence of the criminal investigation into Richard Caldwell. Gregory Price, Amanda's lawyer, fought it viciously. "Your Honor, this is a custody case, not a criminal trial," Gregory argued. "Mr. Caldwell's business dealings are irrelevant to Mrs. Caldwell's fitness as a mother." Victoria countered, "Your Honor, Mrs. Caldwell transferred nearly $300,000 of marital assets to her father. Her father is now under criminal investigation for fraud and money laundering. This isn't irrelevant. This is the heart of the matter. This family has a pattern of financial manipulation, and they've used that pattern to destroy my client's life and restrict his access to his children." The judge allowed the evidence. Gregory Price approached Daniel's table after the hearing. "Your father is making a mistake," he said quietly. "The Caldwell family has resources you can't imagine. They will bury you." I stood up. "We'll see about that." The custody hearing was scheduled for July, 6 months after I'd found my son in that parking lot. 6 months of fighting. 6 months of building our case piece by piece. Daniel was nervous the night before. "What if it doesn't work?" he asked. We were sitting on the balcony of the apartment while the boys slept inside. "What if the judge believes her anyway? Then we appeal. Then we keep fighting." I didn't invest my retirement savings in lawyers to give up now. "Dad, you didn't have to do any of this." "Yes, I did. You're my son. Those are my grandsons. There's nothing I wouldn't do for this family." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I keep thinking about how close I came to losing everything. If you hadn't shown up that day, if you hadn't decided to surprise me for my birthday, but I did show up, and we're going to finish this." The next morning, we put on our suits, kissed the boys goodbye, and drove to the courthouse. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, an air of institutional seriousness. Amanda sat with her parents and Gregory Price at one table. She looked polished, composed, every inch the wronged woman. Richard Caldwell sat behind her, silver-haired and arrogant despite the criminal investigation hanging over his head. Margaret Caldwell clutched a tissue, ready to perform as the concerned grandmother. Daniel sat with me and Victoria at the other table. He was pale but determined. The judge entered. Justice Patricia Hartwell, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had a reputation for being thorough, fair, and intolerant of deception. "Let's begin," she said. The battle for my grandsons had officially started. Victoria presented our case methodically. The forensic accounting showing $280,000 in fraudulent transfers. The false accusations. The contradictory witness testimony. The audio recordings proving the supervised visits were manipulated. Dr. Mitchell's records. Daniel's stable employment and housing. Each piece of evidence built on the last. A mountain of proof. Gregory Price tried to discredit everything. He argued that Daniel's stability was only because of my financial support. He argued that the boys needed their mother. He argued that the financial transfers were legitimate business decisions. But his arguments felt hollow against the weight of evidence. Then Victoria called Amanda to the stand. She walked forward with practiced grace, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. I wondered if she even knew what truth meant anymore. Victoria began. "Mrs. Caldwell, you testified in your original custody filing that you transferred funds from the business account to your father's account as a business loan. Is that correct?" "Yes." Amanda's voice was steady. "Where's the loan agreement?" "It was a verbal agreement." "A verbal agreement for $150,000. "Yes. My father was helping us during a difficult time." "Why was it difficult?" "According to bank records, the business was profitable. Revenue was strong." Amanda hesitated. Her first crack. Daniel was spending recklessly. "On what?" "I don't know. He handled expenses." Victoria pulled out bank statements. These records show that Daniel's personal spending was consistent and modest. Rent, groceries, utilities, transportation. She pulled out another document. Meanwhile, your personal credit card statements show charges at high-end restaurants, boutiques, spa services, totaling over $30,000 in 6 months. Would you call that reckless spending? Amanda's jaw tightened. I deserve to enjoy the success of the business. Was it your business? Or was it a joint venture with your husband funded by his father's investment? It was joint. Then why did you transfer the funds without his knowledge or consent? He knew. Victoria pulled out phone records. Your phone records show no calls or texts to Daniel on the day of the transfer. No discussion. The transfer happened at 9 a.m. Daniel was at a client meeting across town. How did he know? Amanda's face flushed. I don't remember the exact details. Convenient. Victoria picked up another document. Let's talk about the mental health accusations. You claimed Daniel sent threatening text messages. Where are these messages? I deleted them. I was afraid. You were afraid, so you deleted the evidence. But you kept screenshots to show your lawyer. Yes. The screenshots you provided have been analyzed by a digital forensics expert. Victoria held up the report. They show signs of manipulation. Timestamps don't align with phone records. Message threads are incomplete. In fact, the metadata shows these images were created on a computer, not captured from a phone. Would you like to explain that? Gregory Price stood. Objection. Foundation. Overruled, said Justice Hartwell. The witness will answer. Amanda stammered. I don't know. Maybe my phone was acting up. Or maybe these messages were fabricated. The courtroom was silent. Victoria continued. You also claimed Daniel was mentally unstable. Yet Dr. Karen Mitchell's records, which we've submitted, show no signs of instability. In fact, they show a man proactively managing normal work stress. Were you aware of these records when you made your accusations? No. Did you ever encourage Daniel to see a therapist? No. So you claimed he was unstable, but you never encouraged him to get help. And when he did get help on his own, you used it against him. Amanda didn't answer. Her polished composure was cracking. Victoria turned to the judge. Your Honor, what we have here is a deliberate, coordinated effort to destroy a father's relationship with his children while stealing his financial resources. The evidence is overwhelming. Fraudulent financial transfers, fabricated text messages, false accusations, manipulated supervised visit reports. Amanda Caldwell and her family have weaponized the family court system for financial gain. Gregory Price stood. Your Honor, my client made mistakes, but her primary concern has always been the welfare of her children. Victoria shot back. If her primary concern was the children, why did she allow them to believe their father abandoned them? Why did she restrict his contact? Why did she create an environment where those boys thought their dad didn't want them? She pulled out a transcript from the audio recordings. The recordings show children who love their father, who are happy to see him, who ask when they can live with him again. That's not the behavior of children who've been protected from an unstable parent. That's the behavior of children who've been lied to. Justice Hartwell looked at Amanda for a long moment. Mrs. Caldwell, I've reviewed all the evidence. The forensic accounting, the digital analysis, the witness testimony, the audio recordings. She paused. I find it deeply troubling that you made serious accusations against your ex-husband without credible evidence. I find it even more troubling that funds were transferred from a jointly owned business without proper documentation or consent. She turned to Daniel. Mr. Reeves, I've also reviewed Dr. Mitchell's records and your current living situation. You have stable employment, stable housing, and your sons are clearly thriving in your care. I see no evidence of the instability claimed by your ex-wife. She picked up her gavel. I'm ordering an immediate modification of custody. Joint legal custody will be shared equally between both parents. Physical custody will be split 50-50 with both parents having equal parenting time. Supervised visitation is terminated. Mr. Reeves will have unsupervised access to his children effective immediately. Amanda gasped. Margaret stood up. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Sit down, Mrs. Caldwell. I'm not finished. Justice Hartwell's voice was cold steel. I'm also ordering that Amanda Caldwell repay the sum of $280,000 to Daniel Reeves, representing funds improperly transferred from the business account. If repayment is not made within 90 days, I will authorize seizure of assets. She paused. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the Crown Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution. This court does not take kindly to fraud or the manipulation of family court proceedings for financial gain. She struck the gavel. We're adjourned. Daniel's knees buckled. I caught him. He was crying. Not sad tears. Relief tears. Months of pain and fear flooding out. Outside the courtroom, Ethan and Lucas ran to him. They'd been waiting with a social worker. Daniel dropped to his knees and hugged them both, holding them like he'd never let go. Daddy, are we going home? Ethan asked. Yeah, buddy. We're going home. 3 months after the hearing, Richard Caldwell was charged with fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. The investigation had uncovered millions in hidden assets. He was facing serious prison time. Amanda faced charges of embezzlement and fraud. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal. She would repay the money and avoid jail in exchange for a guilty plea on lesser charges. The money came back. Most of it. Legal fees had eaten a significant chunk, but Daniel had enough to restart. He launched a new business, this time with ironclad contracts. A lawyer reviewing everything. Partners he trusted. Ethan and Lucas split time between both parents initially. But as the months passed, Amanda became less interested. She was too busy dealing with her family's legal troubles. Too busy salvaging what remained of her life. The boys spent more and more time with Daniel. Eventually, she stopped fighting for custody altogether. I stayed in Toronto, rented a condo near Daniel's apartment. I see my grandsons 3 times a week. We go to the park. I help with homework. I'm teaching them to play chess. Lucas is surprisingly good. One evening, about a year after that day in the parking lot, Daniel and I were sitting on my balcony while the boys played video games inside. He looked at me. I never thank you properly. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. His voice was thick with emotion. If you hadn't shown up that day, if you hadn't helped me fight, I'd still be living in my car. Or worse, I'd have lost my boys forever. You're my son. That's what fathers do. He was quiet for a moment. I thought I'd lost everything. My wife, my home, my business, my kids. I thought I was the problem. That maybe I really was unstable and everyone else could see it except me. You were never the problem. They wanted you to think that. That's how abusers work. They make you doubt yourself. I know that now. But for months, I believed it. The court believed it. Everyone believed it. Except you. I know my son. I've known you since the day you were born. I know who you are. And you're not what they tried to make you out to be. He nodded. We sat in silence, watching the sun set over Toronto. Dad, he said after a while. Yeah. Thank you. I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You'd have done the same for your boys. He smiled. I would, because I learned it from you. Inside, Ethan called out. Grandpa, come play Mario Kart with us. I stood up. Duty calls. Daniel laughed. Go. I'll order dinner. I walked inside to where my grandsons were setting up controllers. Lucas handed me one with a grin. Grandpa, I'm gonna beat you this time. We'll see about that, buddy. I sat down between them on the couch. 2 healthy, happy boys who had their father back, who had their family back. Ethan leaned against my arm. Grandpa, yeah. I'm glad you found us in the parking lot. My throat tightened. Me too, buddy. Me too. The game started. Lucas immediately took the lead, whooping with joy. I let myself smile. This family had been through hell. But we'd come out the other side. Stronger. Closer. Together. And I would protect them no matter what. Because that's what family does. We don't let each other fall. This story is a reminder that family court systems can be weaponized, that financial abuse is real, and that seemingly perfect facades can hide deep corruption. It's also a story of hope, that with determination, resources, and people who believe in you, justice is possible. Daniel's victory wasn't just about getting his children back. It was about reclaiming his identity, his truth, and his future. And it started with one person who refused to give up on him.